They say you never forget your first love. Not your first crush. Not some schoolyard puppy love. I mean real, raw, confusing, heart-pounding love. And the worst part? Mine was completely off-limits. I was 17 when Ms. Carter walked into my life. It was the first day of senior year. The classroom buzzed with sleepy complaints, rustling backpacks, and the groans of students already counting down to graduation. Then the door opened, and in walked a woman none of us had ever seen before. She wasn't like the other teachers. She didn't carry a coffee mug that said #OneEducator. She didn't wear clunky shoes or cardigan sweaters. She wasn't stiff or tired looking. She was young, maybe late 20s, brown eyes that looked like they held secrets, a calm confidence that filled the room before she even said a word. And the moment she did speak, the room went completely silent. "Good morning. I'm Ms. Carter. I'll be your literature teacher this year," she said, placing her folder gently on the desk. I remember the exact moment her eyes scanned the room and landed on me. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but something inside me froze. I didn't know it yet, but that look, neutral, brief, professional, would be the start of everything. At first, it was nothing. She was just a really good teacher, the kind who didn't just assign books but brought them to life. We read The Great Gatsby, and she didn't just talk about the green light or old money. She asked us what we longed for, what we'd chase even if it destroyed us. We read Catcher in the Rye, and she didn't just talk about teenage angst. She asked why we were so angry, so lost. She didn't teach stories. She taught us through stories. And I had never felt so seen. I started sitting closer to the front. Not right in front, that would be too obvious. Second row, seat 3. Just close enough to catch her voice without effort, to see the way her eyebrows lifted when she was excited about a passage. And soon, I found myself writing differently. Assignments that used to take me 20 minutes now took 2 hours. I'd rewrite essays 3 times just to get the tone right. Just to impress her. And then one day, she handed back one of my papers and said, "You have a voice, Jason. A real one. Don't waste it." I felt like I could fly. That night, I stared at her comment for hours. I wasn't just another student to her. She saw something in me. Or maybe I was just desperate for someone to see anything at all. My parents were barely speaking by that point. My dad worked late. My mom slept through dinner. Our house was quiet, cold, mechanical. But in Ms. Carter's class, I mattered. It wasn't just me, though. Everyone liked her. She was kind, fair, patient. She didn't play favorites. At least, not obviously. But I noticed things. The way she sometimes lingered near my desk during group activities. The way she smiled slightly wider when I made a joke. The way her gaze would occasionally lock with mine a second too long before moving on. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I wanted to. But my feelings weren't imaginary. They were real. Growing. Dangerous. I told no one, of course. How could I? Who could I even say it to? "Hey man, I think I'm falling for my English teacher." Yeah. No thanks. Besides, I didn't even fully admit it to myself yet. I just told myself I admired her, respected her, looked up to her. But admiration doesn't make your heart race when someone leans over your desk. Respect doesn't make you memorize every word she says. I was in deep. Then came the poetry assignment. "Write something honest," she said. "Something that scares you. No filters." So I did. I wrote about falling in love with someone I couldn't have. I didn't name names. I was careful. I made it vague enough to be safe. But when she read it, really read it, she paused. Her fingers tapped the edge of my desk. Her eyes flicked up just for a second. Then she said quietly, "That was brave," and walked away. The next few days were weird. She avoided eye contact a little more. Gave more feedback in writing, less in person. I thought maybe I'd gone too far. That she knew. That I'd ruined it. But then she assigned a creative writing project, groups of 2. And she paired herself with me. "We're one person short in the class," she said. "So I'll help Jason with his piece." My stomach dropped. Just the 2 of us. Writing. After class. In her office. What was happening? The first time I stayed after class, I told myself it was just about writing. Nothing more. Just a teacher helping a student. Totally normal. Except my heart didn't believe that. It beat way too fast as I walked into her office that afternoon. Miss Carter's office smelled like old books and vanilla. There were stacks of poetry anthologies, writing magazines, and a dusty kettle in the corner. She had soft indie music playing low in the background, something with a female voice and acoustic guitar. She smiled when I walked in. "Nervous?" she asked. "Little bit," I admitted. "Good," she said. "That means you care." She gestured for me to sit across from her. The desk between us was small. Everything felt close. Too close. We started going over my story idea. A fictional tale about a boy who falls in love with someone he can't have. A girl with rules around her. Boundaries. Unreachable. She read silently for a few minutes, then looked up. "This feels honest," she said. "Painfully so." I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes studying mine. "Jason, where does this come from?" I shrugged. "Just life. Anything you want to talk about?" My throat tightened. I wanted to say, yes. "I'm talking about you. This is about you. Can't you tell? But I shook my head instead. "Not really." She nodded, almost as if she expected that answer. That became a routine. Once a week, sometimes twice, I'd stay after school. We'd go over drafts, talk about writing. She'd challenge me to dig deeper, to be bolder. "You're afraid of what happens if someone sees the real you," she said once. "But that's where the best writing lives, in the risk." I started writing better than I ever had. And feeling worse than I ever had. Because the more time I spent with her, the more I wanted what I knew I couldn't have. One afternoon, she was late. I sat in her office waiting, tapping my pen nervously. When she finally walked in, she looked tired, emotionally tired. She apologized for the delay, then sat down and just stared out the window. I waited. Finally, she said softly, "You ever feel like you're being pulled in two directions?" "All the time," I replied, maybe too fast. She laughed, just a breath of a laugh, then looked at me. "There are things in life," she said, "that feel right in your heart but wrong on paper. And sometimes, those are the hardest to walk away from." She wasn't talking about writing anymore. And neither was I when I said, "So what do you do?" She looked down. "You remember who you are. And what's at stake." That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the conversation again and again. I wasn't imagining it anymore. There was something between us. Something fragile, dangerous, but also completely off limits. The next time I saw her in class, everything felt different. She avoided eye contact, gave me shorter answers, didn't smile as much. I thought maybe she regretted everything, that she wanted to create space. So I decided to do the same. I stopped staying after class. I went back to my usual seat. I answered less, spoke less, avoided her gaze. It hurt like hell, but it was the right thing to do, wasn't it? Then she left me a note, folded in my graded essay. "Come by, just once more, if you want to." My hands trembled as I read it. My mind screamed, "Don't go." But my heart? It already knew I would. When I walked into her office that day, she was waiting, quiet, like she'd been rehearsing something. "I just wanted to talk," she said. I nodded. She looked down at her hands. "I know you feel something," she said. "And I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice." Silence. I couldn't breathe. "But I'm your teacher, Jason. And this can't happen." I nodded again, but my chest was burning. "I know," I whispered. She looked up, eyes glassy. "You're brilliant. You're kind. You see the world in a way most people never will. And someday, someone will love you the way you deserve." The words stung because they were true, because she was right, and because it wasn't her. I stood to leave. She didn't stop me. But as I reached the door, she said, "Don't stop writing. Even when it hurts. Especially then." I didn't look back. That night, I wrote a story. Not for school. Not for her. For me. About a boy who fell in love with light and finally learned to live in the dark. Life went on. That's what people say when things fall apart. When something inside you breaks, but the world keeps spinning like it didn't notice. School continued. Essays, tests, announcements about prom. But something in me had changed. And she was the reason. After that last meeting in her office, Ms. Carter and I barely spoke. She didn't look at me during class anymore. She gave my papers short comments. No more private jokes. No soft smiles. No eye contact that lingered too long. She built a wall. And I helped her build it. Because I knew it was what we both needed. But knowing something is right doesn't make it easy. I'd walk into class and feel the air shift every time she entered. I'd sit in my seat, pretending to take notes while stealing glances I couldn't help. She looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. Like she was carrying something too heavy for her heart. Maybe that was just projection. Maybe that was me. At night, I started writing again. But not stories. Letters. To her. I never sent them, of course. That would have crossed the line we were desperately trying to hold. But I wrote them anyway. Letters full of things I couldn't say out loud. Things like, I'm not mad at you for walking away. I'm mad at the universe for putting us in the same place at the wrong time. Do you miss me even a little, or did I imagine everything? I filled an entire notebook in 2 weeks. Then I burned it. Tariq noticed something was off. You've been weird lately, he said one day at lunch. Quiet. Distracted. Depressed, honestly. I shrugged. Just senior stress. Right? He said, clearly not convinced. I wanted to tell him. Just once. Just unload everything and hear someone say I wasn't crazy. But I couldn't risk it. Because if I said it out loud, it wouldn't be a feeling anymore. It would be a confession. And that was too dangerous. A month passed. Then two. Then came the senior awards ceremony. I wasn't going to attend. But my mom insisted. You've worked hard, she said. You're not skipping this. So I went. Sat in the back row, hoodie up, trying not to exist. I wasn't expecting anything. I hadn't been myself in months. Then they called my name. Best Creative Writing Portfolio, Jason Malik. I blinked. It took me a full 5 seconds to stand. When I walked up to the stage, Ms. Carter handed me the certificate. For a second, our fingers touched. She smiled, not the professional smile she used in class. A real one. I told you not to stop writing, she said quietly. And that was it. That was the moment I realized. We were still connected. Just not the way I wanted. After the ceremony, I walked home alone. I held the certificate in one hand, but my heart felt heavier than ever. Not because I missed her, I did more than ever, but because I knew it wasn't over. Not really. You don't move past a love like that. You just learn how to carry it. Finals came and went. Graduation followed. No more school. No more literature class. No more assigned poems or short story deadlines. No more Ms. Carter. Or so I thought. A few weeks after graduation, I went to the local bookstore to clear my head. I wandered into the poetry section and saw a small flyer pinned to the corkboard. Creative Writing Workshop, hosted by Evelyn Carter. I stared at it for so long the letters started to blur. It was her. She was hosting a summer class. For graduates. Adults. Open to all ages 18 plus. And I had just turned 18 last week. I stood there for 20 minutes. I could have walked away. Should have maybe. But I didn't. Because something inside me whispered, this isn't over. I signed up for the workshop the same night I saw the flyer. I didn't even think twice. Just filled out the form, paid the small fee, and waited for the confirmation email. The next day it came. Welcome to the Summer Creative Workshop, hosted by Evelyn Carter. We're excited to have you. I read that name, Evelyn Carter, over and over. Her first name. It felt strange. Almost too intimate. Like knowing a secret I wasn't supposed to say out loud. The class met twice a week at a small community center. 10 students, a mix of college kids and older adults. No desks. Just folding chairs in a circle, not a chalkboard in sight. And her, Miss Carter, no, Evelyn, stood at the front, holding a notebook, smiling that same calm smile I remembered. Except now, I wasn't her student. At least, not officially. I sat in the back the first day, half hoping she wouldn't recognize me. But she did. The moment her eyes scanned the room, they stopped at me. Just for a second. She said nothing. Neither did I. We didn't speak directly for the first 2 sessions. She led the group through prompts and exercises. Write about a moment you regret. Write about someone you left behind. The topics hit too close. But I wrote anyway. Because being in the same room with her again, even as a stranger, was like breathing after months underwater. On the 3rd session, we were paired off for feedback. Randomly, she claimed. But I ended up with her. Of course I did. We sat at a small table in the corner while the others worked in pairs. She held my pages in her hands. Silent. Reading. I watched her eyes move across the words. A story about a boy who fell in love with his past and didn't know how to let it go. When she finished, she looked up. "You've gotten better," she said. "Thanks. You didn't stop writing. You told me not to." She nodded. "I meant it." The pause. Then, this character, he's still holding on. I looked at her carefully. Should he let go? She didn't answer. Just said, "That depends." Did he love her or the idea of her? That question ruined me for days. After that session, she stopped treating me like a student. She asked more questions. Shared more of her own work. Told stories about writing in college, her failed novel, the poem she almost published but pulled back last minute. We started talking before class. Then after. Then we got coffee once, just the 2 of us. Totally casual. Totally not a big deal. Except it was. Because I wasn't 17 anymore. And she wasn't my teacher. We were 2 writers. 2 people. Sitting in a corner cafe, laughing about poetry and publishers and how hard it is to be vulnerable on the page. And it felt easy. Dangerously easy. One evening after class, I helped her carry some materials to her car. It was raining lightly. She didn't have an umbrella. I held mine over both of us. Her arm brushed mine. Barely. But I felt it like a current through my chest. At her car, she turned to me. "You've grown," she said softly. "A lot." I swallowed. "You too." We both laughed, awkward, unsure. "I mean, not grown. You're already I know what you meant," she said, smiling. A beat of silence. "I'm glad you came," she added. Then she got into her car and drove away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Was I imagining this all again? Was I reading into things? Or was something real happening? A connection, no longer buried beneath rules or grades or hallway glances. Something honest. Still complicated, but honest. Next class, we were asked to read something personal. I read a piece called Asterisk, The Space Between Then and Now. It was about timing. About how 2 people can be perfect in the wrong chapter. About how love doesn't always wait for the rules to change. The room was quiet when I finished. Evelyn looked at me like she hadn't in years. Eyes wide. No words. And that silence said more than any applause ever could. The day after I read my piece, Evelyn didn't say a word to me. Not after class. Not in the parking lot. Not in a message. Just silence. And it hurt more than I expected. I had poured myself into that story. I had stripped the emotion bare. No metaphors, no hidden meanings. It was me. And she knew it. I considered not coming back. What was the point? I wasn't in love with a memory anymore. This time it was real. And I'd said it without saying it. And she'd said nothing. But of course I came back. Because even if it wasn't mutual, I still needed closure. The next class was small, only 6 people showed up. It was summer and people were traveling. She was quieter than usual. Until the end. When she asked me to stay. We sat outside on a bench near the center. The sky was heavy with clouds, but the air was warm. Quiet. She took a deep breath. "Your piece," she started, Was beautiful. Thanks. I didn't know what to say at first. I still don't. I nodded, waiting. It's hard, she continued, because I remember who you were. In that classroom. And I remember how it felt, being seen by you. That surprised me. You felt that too? She smiled, small and sad. I'm not blind, Jason. I noticed the way you looked at me. The extra drafts. The stories. I wasn't stupid. Just scared. Scared of what? Of crossing a line I couldn't come back from. She looked at me then, really looked. And now? She sighed. Now it's different. You're not a student. You're an adult. Eesh. My heart raced. So what are we saying? She paused for a long time. I'm saying, I care about you. Probably more than I should. Maybe always did. But I also know how complicated this is. I'm not asking for forever, I said quietly. I'm just asking if it's real. Another silence. Then she whispered, yes. It's real. That word shifted something in the air. We sat there, breathing the same nervous rhythm. I wanted to reach for her hand. But I didn't. Because even now, even with all the rules gone, I still respected her too much to rush this. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't say, I love you. We didn't walk into the sunset. But we did meet for coffee again. And again. And one evening, she gave me a short story she'd written. It was about a woman who spent years teaching others how to find their voice, only to realize she'd lost her own. And how one student, one unexpected, unplanned connection, helped her find it again. It ended with a line I'll never forget. Sometimes we don't choose who changes us. We only choose what we do with the change. It's been 8 months. We're not together. Not in the way people expect when they hear stories like this. We don't live in a romantic movie. We live in the real world. She teaches at a university now. I got accepted into a writing program in another city. But we write. We call. We send each other drafts and poems and bits of dialogue. We don't label it. We don't define it. We just exist in each other's orbits. And somehow, that feels more honest than anything. Looking back, I don't regret falling for her. I don't regret the confusion, or the heartbreak, or the long silences. Because she was my turning point. The moment I realized that love isn't about perfection. It's about timing. And the courage to feel something, even when you're not sure what comes next. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. Not the letters. Not the silence. Not even the pain. Because now I know. Some stories aren't meant to end. They're meant to evolve.